guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time watching, thank you. I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button for more simple DIY woodworking videos. Today, I'm in my home office, which also happens to be in my bedroom. This little tiny area behind me is, let's just call it my desk. It's basically a TV tray and a couple of cabinet doors, which sits very low to the floor. It's not very functional and it gets cluttered pretty quickly. So I need a quick, simple fix for this problem. With just one sheet of plywood, I'm going to try and turn that into a desk that has storage space and enough room for me to spread out all my papers. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and stick around. We're going to make us a desk. Thanks for watching. At my local hardware store, I had my 3/4 inch birch plywood cut down into 4 equal pieces to fit into my car. I also picked up 4 tapered legs at 27 inches, which I plan to cut down later. To give my desk a modern look, I'm going to install these angle plates under the desk. Before starting my project, I drew out each piece of the desk on my plywood for quicker and efficient cutting. I ripped each piece as planned at the table saw and used an outfeed roller to help support the heavy plywood. Here's a hot tip. Oftentimes the blades at the hardware stores used to cut can be dull. This leads to tear out on your wood, which means rough, unsightly edges. I made sure to cut off the edges of my ply before factoring that into which pieces I would use. To prevent tear out in your shop, it's best to start with a sharp blade or use painter's tape on your cut line. For the smaller cuts like the drawers in the back of the desk, I went over to the miter saw to make them. I used a stop block, which is basically a scrap piece of wood clamped to my fence. This ensures that my pieces will all be the same size. Once the drawer pieces were cut, I needed to make a groove for the drawer bottom. There are a few ways that this can be done, either at the router table or at the table saw. I ultimately found that the table saw gave me a better fit for the material I used for the drawer bottom, which is a 1/4 inch piece of hardboard. Feel free to use plywood or MDF for this part of the project. Now that I have all my pieces together, I can start assembling, starting with the divider that will separate my drawers. The divider is screwed into the top of the desk. I drilled a few pocket holes and used 1 1/4 inch pocket screws to install. Then I moved to install the outermost sides with pocket holes. I chose soft close drawer slides. They're pretty easy to install. They come in 2 pieces. One side fits onto the drawer and the other onto the case of the desk. If you have a cabinet drawer jig, it would be helpful. I don't own one, so I used a scrap piece of plywood. The slides come with screws. I did, however, make pilot holes before installing mine. Those awesome angle plates, they're ready for their debut. I measured 4 inches from the outermost sides and about 1 3/4 inches from the top and bottom to ensure they would be parallel to the edge of the desk. Then I screwed on the bottom of the desk using 1 1/4 inch screws. After dry fitting the drawers and doing a little nudging, I glued the bottoms in with wood glue. Looks like those drawer slides are looking good. The average height of a desk is typically between 29 and 30 inches. With the taper legs being 27 inches, that would make typing pretty uncomfortable for me. So I'm going to cut about 1.5 inches off of the bottom of each of the legs at the bandsaw. I'm almost ready to install everything, but first I need to drill a semicircle in the drawer front with a 1.5 inch Forstner bit. I used a scrap piece of wood underneath to stable it. Then I sanded for a bit with 150 grit sandpaper. I vacuumed any remaining sawdust and used a tack cloth to remove any remaining bits. Plywood edges are one of those things you either love or hate. I decide to cover mine up with some veneer. I like the look of miter edges coming together, but they can be a bit tricky to get right, so I opted for an alternative method. I'm going to cut my veneer at an angle to simulate a miter cut. With the warm iron, I'll give it a press job and cut off the excess with my pull saw. You can also use a box cutter to remove any remaining veneer. Back to the shop for more sanding. I'm using a sanding pad, which is basically a cork block with a piece of sandpaper wrapped around it to clean up those unsightly edges. It's drawer installation time. Using the same screws, I'm installing them from the inside. Getting drawers right can be tricky. A drawer front is a great way to disguise any imperfections, and if I decide to change the color scheme later, I can easily remove them. For my finish, I used a wood primer and then high gloss paint with a high quality velour brush. And for the drawer fronts, I used a gel stain that matches the shelves in my bedroom office. Time to twist on those legs. Since I cut off the swivel feet off the bottom, I needed to prevent my desks from sliding and protect my floors. I placed these plastic leg tips on the bottom. And finally, I have a desk large enough to hold my cup of tea, my keyboard, and my notepad. I'm super excited about using it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching.